Greetings, Patrick here, A Questions With, and we are here for the Thursday edition of Eight Questions With. Get me this out of here. All right, well, welcome to the show. Um, yeah, we are sitting at the doorstep of our first snowstorm. So winter had disappeared pretty much from here in southeastern Michigan for pretty much till right now. But we had a little dusting of snow earlier today, but that was just a small sample of what we're supposed to get. Um, Not going to be huge. It's probably going to be like 1 to 3 inches of snow, but the rest of the state's going to get pounded. It's going to be pretty heavy. Some places getting up to over 8 inches of snow. Um, Now, of course, other places are getting popped pretty good too. So, um, but I mean, it's just the first. But what's going to make it really interesting for us is the fact that it's going to be followed up by Arctic air, which means that the normal 3 inch snowfall disappears really quick. But with the snowfall, with the temperatures being as cold as they are, the snow that we get will be around for quite a bit. They're saying that we might not warm up till the end of the month. So, like I said, we didn't have any winter at all until right now. Crazy, right? Well, anyway, you guys are here for the show, and tonight we're going to be talking to one of our own. That's right. We are going to be talking to our good friend Dell from Dell On Movies. He'll be here in about 15 minutes or so. So I'm looking forward to this quite a bit to tell you to be honest with you. He's one of the coolest dudes out there. Enjoy watching his content. He's got movie swap going on, which is probably one of the fastest and more popular series I think any movie tuber is doing right now. Notice how I say movie tuber because he watches other things other than horror. Um, but he is a movie tuber. He does a lot of horror too, but he also loves superheroes and whatnot. Um, but yeah, his movie swap is one of the coolest series going right now. Hey, Anthony, how are you? Anthony said he went and saw Iron Claw. I know a lot of people are seeing that now. The latest movie from A24 about the Van Erich family tragedy, tragic family, tragic history. Good movie though. It stars uh, Zach Zach Efron. That's right. Um, yeah, I'm hoping to see that sometime down the line. This is one of those movies that you have to sit there and say, you hope that the library will get the copy of the movie in. So, of course, that's such a crapshoot now that now that the library does not do as many discards as they used to. So getting rather new movies is not really much of an option right now. But that's happens. Um, but believe me, we got plenty to watch. We have plenty to talk about. Um, so Dell, I'm looking forward to talking to Dell. Like I said, he's a really nice guy. He's a school teacher, which I didn't. I watched his he gave a channel update and he mentioned that was switching schools. Um, and so we'll talk to him a little about that. His love for teaching. I think that's a really noble profession. These days. What a you have to be part school teacher, part psychiatrist, and part infantryman. It seems like these days at school. It's like the cops every day. The cops say you don't know they don't know what they're going to get when they go on a run, and it really feels like that for teachers as well. You don't know if you're going to be coming home to your family at the end of the night. Isn't that sad to say? Wow. That's really a sad thing to think about, like you're a school teacher and you go out of your house and you hope that you're able to come back home to your family. You're like a damn cop without the body armor or the weapons. But we'll talk to Adele about that too. I'm really interested in seeing how he feels about that and get his opinion. We've been busy here at the old homestead. We're working on the calendar. We had a great show last night with Grace Juliana. Wow, what a really dynamic young actress, and had a lot of fun talking to her. We ended up even talking a little bit after the show too. Really nice young lady, real sharp, and I really enjoy talking to her. And hopefully, when the movie that she's filming that hasn't been listed on IMDb, hopefully when that movie gets hitting the post production closer to the summer, we're definitely going to have her come back and talk about her experience on the movie. Um, and of course, Avenue U. That's also still in the pipeline. Hopefully, we'll be able to have talked a little bit more about that with her as well, because that's a pretty big movie. That's a pretty big movie, but she says she wanted us to get a little bit further down the line. Um, and I agree. I mean, just because the movie's listed on IMDb, it could be just listed there, but they might not even have started shooting yet. So we're gonna wait and hopefully have her come back during the summer. Um, oh, thank you so much, Anthony. All right. So, of course, you guys all know we're working the calendar. Um, I'm excited to tell you that we're going to have an old friend come back, not come back, but come here. This will be our first time we've talked to him in what, about 2.5 years. Thinking 2.5 years. Has it been that long? And boy, that's just sometimes I book these interviews with people that I see all the time, and I don't even it doesn't really hit me that time has gone by since I've talked to him. And then you look at it, and then you go look at it, and go like, "Wow, I'm on episode 385 here," and it's like, "Oh, wait, I haven't had that person on the show yet." And you look at it and go like, "Has that really happened? Have I really just not, extended the invitation? What the hell?" And yeah, that does happen. So we're trying to fix that this year. We're going to go around and we're going to bring back some friends that either have appeared on the show in here, or either on the midnight hour, or also on my blog, that have not been on the show here. So we're going to be working really hard on bringing you some dynamic names upcoming. All right, and yes, and that will include getting an interview with Anthony here in February. I just got to find the time and give him a date, because Anthony did a show with us and we had a lot of fun. And since he's writing his memoirs, we'll talk about that. All right. So I've discovered a show through my buddy Catfish. He used to love this show. Uh, hey Reed, how are you, sir? Dell will be here shortly. He will be here in about 7 minutes, 7 or 8 minutes. Um, so I have discovered a show that my buddy Catfish used to talk about all the time. My buddy was a huge car nut. He loved cars. I mean, he loved the cars, and so he used to watch a show that I didn't really never saw until in his collection he had a couple of seasons of it. And so I was just looking for something to watch while I had my dinner. So I flipped on a disc, and the show is called Top Gear. Now, it's not a new show. In fact, it's been on for 33 seasons over in the UK, but it was new to me. I've never seen it. Um, and in it, it has three different gentlemen, three English gentlemen, and that's what they do. They talk about cars. Um, it's part talk show and part car show, and they talk about all the cool cars that are out. The season I got is came out in 2010. Um, I There was a lot of these that came out during the Dollar Tree waves. I never got any of them because they were cars. I'm not really a car guy. I mean, I drive a car, and I like cars, but I'm not diehard into cars, right? Um, And so I never really picked up any of the seasons that were there, but he did. So I think they dropped off maybe like 5 or 6 seasons at the Dollar Tree. So I'm watching the season. I'm not sure what season I'm watching now, but um, I know it came out in 2010. So it's the first time I've ever watched it. I got to tell you, I'm hooked. I gotta that's a fun ass show. That is a fun show. Uh, and they do different challenges during the show. They race a fighter plane. They take three supercars and they tour Romania. The most extreme challenge I saw them do was they challenged a dog sled team versus a tricked out Toyota, and they raced 400 miles to the North Pole. That was much closer than you would think it would be. That was I was like, I was thinking, oh right, that's going to be the easiest thing on the planet, to just jump in that car and just drive flat, you know. Though I will say this: that show was filmed in 2010. I don't necessarily think it'll be an easy thing for them to do this year, with climate warming being a factor such as it is. Yeah, that would be a lot more scarier to do than not. Um, all right, the doorbell has rang. The doorbell has rang, so let's go get our guest and see if he also is a Top Gear fan because that's a fun show. All right, please help me welcome our good friend Dell from Dell On Movies. All right, here we go.
Hey, there I am.
There he is. All right, all right, all right.
Can you hear me okay?
We hear you perfect.
All right. What's
So, so let me. Are you a car guy? I mean, do you like cars, or are you like me that just it's a car, it takes me from A to B and back home? Or are you a guy that likes to look at all the magazines, go to to car lot and look at cars?
I'm in between. I'm not a car guy. Like I'm not gonna rattle off, the models of all my favorite cars. The Diablo XYZ 3800. I'm not that guy, and I'm not buying the car magazines. But every once in a while, I have gone to car shows, and I do like looking at pretty cars. So I appreciate them a little more than just point A to point B. But I'm not like into cars.
Wow, this is a blast from the past. Haven't seen this person in a long time. Just walked in the chat. I got to make sure it's really him though, because you got to watch out for imposters. So we have to send out a password to this guy. Make sure he is who he really says he is. Otherwise, it could be trouble. So we'll see if it's really him or not. We stand by alert. Um, because we haven't seen him in he hasn't shown up in like months. Of course, that means that's probably really good too. That means he's probably really busy. Um,
Yeah, busy's good.
let's see. It is. It's him. All right. Hey Rick, how are you, sir? Whew, yeah. So yes, we have a clue. We have a password. Make sure it's really him because only we know what the password is. In the chat, as you can see, he just said it. Um, but no, I was right before he got here. I was talking about how I discovered Top Gear, which is an English show, and I guess it's been going around for a while, like 33 seasons. So it's like that's a lot. That's a long time. Um, and I was just watching it, and they do all these crazy challenges, and like I never heard of it. I just put it on there because I was trying to get something to eat. I was eating something. I just wanted something to watch. And all of a sudden, I see all these guys racing up the Arctic Circle, to the North Pole. And I'm going like,
Okay.
I had a tricked out Toyota with these fat ass wheels, and they had a rifle on top of it for polar bears.
Were
I
they,
mean, it was just absolutely insane.
were they filming the Fast and the Furious scene, or what was
You
on?
know what? It looked like it. It actually looked like it, and they were racing a dog team. That was the thing. One of the hosts was the dog team, and the other two were in the Toyota racing to the North Pole. And of course, you're thinking, what kind of challenge is that? I mean, the Toyota is going to win that. It's not going to even be close. But it wasn't as close as I thought it would be. Um,
I don't know
yeah,
what kind of how cars perform near the North Pole. I have no clue, so I wouldn't really assume that. But yeah, that's
yeah.
crazy.
I was just thinking, like, what happens if they get in trouble? I mean, like what happens to them? Like if the car breaks down. I mean, I know they have support crew, but how are they gonna? I mean, even I'm sure it's a minimum crew. Not like it's not like you take, like you said, it's not like a Fast and Furious movie. You're gonna take like 500 people up there.
Right.
Um, but I was thinking, what would happen if something happened up there? How would they get that car back? Or if they did see actually did see a polar bear while they're out there taking a poo,
Wow. Yeah.
what would they, do they have like a crew stand with that rifle? I mean, it's just like I had more questions than I had answers.
Yeah. I didn't even think
Um,
about polar bears. You're right.
yeah. Rick, who owns Underground Sobrosa, which is the film distributing company, he sells films. He says has been working super hard. Yeah, that's something we'll be touching upon too. Physical media, and a company like Underground Sobrosa. Wow, what a good place to be if you're a film seller. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of fun. You're gonna be very busy uh, selling movies, because I don't know about you, but I watch the mood of the community, and you starting to feel that vibe among people, that movies are going to start becoming rather hard to come by, you know, and it's not going to be as easy to get the new releases have, it's not going to be, it's going to be a little bit more pricier. And if you're looking for pricing, and if you're looking for availability, it's going to get a little sketchy, I think, going forward for a while. What do you think?
Yeah. Everybody's reacting to the whole Best Buy thing and Target and other stores, paring back or getting rid of physical media. So everybody's trying to figure out, well, what's next? How are we going to do this? And I mean, if we're really going to face facts, physical media, at least as far as movies are concerned, because records are physical media too. But as far as movies are concerned, it's been trending towards being a niche market for a long time now. And we're just kind of going that way. And yeah, we might have to pay a few more bucks than we used to for a new release. And unfortunately, that's the way of the world. And it's really going to come down to what is Walmart going to keep in stores, because they're the biggest retailer still carrying them. And, they're DVD heavy, and a lot of collectors are not. And then, how is Amazon going to treat us? Because that's the next biggest retailer, or the biggest retailer online that people go to buy movies. And, those are where our quote unquote deals are going to come from. And then we, have to rely on the same things we always or have come to rely on over the last few years, sales on Kino, sales on Groove, sales Criterion, whatever happens throughout the year, all these different little sales.
Yeah, it's funny. I noticed that Arrow's running a 50% off sale at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
So I went over there, and I just wanted to see what the lowest price movie there was over there. They had one movie they were selling for $5. One,
An Arrow movie?
and that was on DVD. Blu-ray was still $20.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes with all these boutique labels. I mean, a lot of new releases, you're running $40. So then when that 50% sale comes in, yeah, you're still running 20, which, the disconnect is that the studio titles, when Best Buy was heavy into it, and even Walmart and Target, studio titles will come out at $20, $30 for the 4K if you wanted that. But now you're starting at $39.99 for a lot of these boutique label titles. So it gets pricey.
Yeah, I mean, it was the exception to see. Let's see, Hobbs mentions here. He personally doesn't see the problems. I don't ship for movies I truly want. I don't ship for any movies I truly want uh, at any of the major retailers. I find just as good as deals at other places. There won't be any issues if you truly look. I personally think it's going to end up going to where it's going to be video on demand. That's where I think it's going to go. I
It
think
could
that's
go to that, or even printing on demand.
yeah,
And to Hobbs's point, I mean, the thing is, everybody's not going to truly look, though. They're going to just go to where they normally go, and if that place is not there anymore, they're going to find the easiest place. They're not going to do the digging that collectors would, even though they
yeah.
might still want a movie.
Yeah, as everybody knows, I'm definitely a digger. You know, I go to the library every week. That's my hunting ground. You know, I get it for pennies on the dollar compared to new. I just don't get new as much as I used to.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I'm
but
just looking at in the comments again with Hobbs. He mentioned some great places, deep discount Hamilton book, and it's one of those things where in everybody I know in the Bluetooth community, they at least have heard of these places, deep discount Hamilton book and Orbit DVD and places like that. But if I go outside of my door and talk to people, if I say Hamilton book, what the hell is Hamilton book? I don't know what that is.
Second and Charles, you're right. I mean, it's
Yeah,
another place. Most people, well, you know, even small mom and pop thrift stores. There are a lot of mom and pop thrift stores out there,
yeah,
which I'm
yeah.
really surprised at. They're not just. I immediately think the thrifting. You immediately think of Salvation Army and Goodwill, but that's not just always. That's not always. There's other thrift shops out there, and of course, Platex John from Platex too. He is
Great
the
guy.
master. He is the master of Facebook Marketplace.
Yep.
That guy finds more deals at Marketplace than anybody else, and it's
He
not
does.
even close.
I don't know if you're familiar with Miranda Movies Madness. She also gets a lot of stuff on Facebook Marketplace. And for me personally, I don't do Facebook at all. But you mentioned thrift shops. I go to a lot of thrift shops in the area, and used bookstores often have DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks. That's another good source. They're usually a little pricier than thrift shops, but you still find some good stuff there.
Definitely. Um, let's see. A true collector should know not just to go to Walmart or Best Buys for movies.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
yeah,
That's what you don't that you see now me and Hobbs, see, we're old school. He and I used to do videos when family video was still around. We go there and show us back our hauls. In fact, Hobbs got a little he's got a little playlist of it, which I visit like 5 times a year because it's such a cool little set. It was such a cool segment, but then his store closed. But he's right. It's
yeah,
sort of funny to watch people say, I'm come with me. I'm hunting for movies." And they hunt their ass right to Best Buy or Target or whatever. And it's like, you're not hunting for movies. You're going to go to the store and buying them. That's not hunting.
right.
That's like going to get a hamburger at McDonald's. Hunting is sitting there for 2 hours on your ass waiting for the library to open up, and so you can be the first one in to grab whatever they have on the shelf.
Yeah,
To me, that's hunting.
yeah,
Uh, or going to Hamilton Book, once a month, like, and checking that out, or knowing enough to stay, or if you're blessed enough to have a good Goodwill store. I don't. My Goodwill store is for shit.
I've got a couple, and with Goodwill stores and that I've found, I mean, it's hit or miss. It's one of those things where you go to a Goodwill store this week and there's nothing there, and you come back in 2 weeks later and they got a whole stack of stuff, and it's like, oh man, there's some gems in here, and then you come back 2 weeks after that and there's nothing again, and
Right.
and I'm happen to be lucky where I have several Goodwill stores, thrift stores in my area, so I can kind of spread out, when I visit each one. But
Right.
yeah, you got to hunt. You got if you want
Yeah. Yeah.
deals, if you want deals, if you just want to get the latest releases, then go for it. That's what you do. But if you want deals, you're gonna have to hunt. And Hobbs is absolutely right. Walmart, Best Buy, that's not the only place you need to be going.
You know what it is? It's funny too because it's gotten to the point now where it's more about the hunt itself than it is about watching. Like for me, it's like I will see a movie that I really want and I'll hunt for it. That's what I'm looking for. That's what really, especially when the video stores were open,
Yeah.
family. It was just about the hunt. It was about just finding that one movie, and then you end up getting it and you take it home and you put it up on your shelf, and then you look around, then you go like, what's next?
Yep.
It's like,
Yeah. What's
didn't
that?
you like that? Like I don't know very many of us in our community that goes and buys a movie. All right, I got it. I got it. Okay. I'm shutting off for YouTube. I'm going to go be back in 2 hours because I got this. I don't know very many of us that do that. A lot of us will go there and say, I got it, and then next thing you know, you hear them talking about it or showing them doing a movie collection, and there it is, still factory sealed.
Yeah, I do open mine. I don't always get to watch them right away, but I do open mine because I don't plan on selling any of mine. And but going back to something you said towards the beginning of when you started talking, when you find something, you get that feeling, you get that hit that it's like, oh my god, I found a treasure right here. And yeah, even if you just go put it on the shelf for it to sit for a while, you still have that satisfaction that you found something that you, even if somebody else has found it, it's like, man, not many people have gotten their hands on something like this, at least for the same price that I got it. Right. So a couple weeks ago, I did a video where I showed what I got from a used bookstore here in town, and I got there. I go in with no expectations. I don't know what I'm gonna find, and it didn't look like I was gonna find anything. But lo and behold, there was a digibook for All About Eve, and another one for the Kane Mutiny, and then there was a steel book for the Jazz Singer. So I grabbed them all. I was, oh my
Oh,
goodness,
hell yeah.
yeah. So I grabbed those all because you get that hit, that rush, and it's like, oh man, I found something. And your first thought, at least mine anyway, as a collector, is like, one, I've never seen these titles out in the wild like this. Never, not in this form. Like, I've seen All About Eve like on DVD 1,000 times, but on a Blu-ray, in a digibook that's in excellent condition, this has to come home with me. There's
Yeah,
no way I'm walking out with that sitting on the shelf like that.
you're right. Yeah, I went to, this past week, I went to the library, and it was my first, it's been 3 weeks since I found anything. They were pretty much shut down during Christmas and New Year's. And I got there this Tuesday, and they wheeled out the cart, and there sitting on the cart was the whole series of the old Land of the Lost show from the
Wow.
70s.
From the
And I'm just like,
70s. Wow, yeah.
and it's like, wow, I paid 75 cents for it. And it's
Man.
just like, that's amazing. That's just like, that's so cool. It's a blast from the past, and you never see it out at all. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
my Goodwill, I'll tell you, the only thing I ever get at my Goodwill, which is hilarious because I can't explain this, but the only thing I ever get from my Goodwill, I always get Food Network documentaries, the Food Network shows. That's the only thing I ever find at my Goodwill. Everything else is shot to shit or it's gone. The disc is missing.
Yeah, a lot of times in Goodwills, I mean, you got to kind of be careful what you're picking. And you reminded me, just getting that really, really super cheap deal. I went to a pawn shop once and just sitting there in perfect condition. It wasn't sealed, but in perfect condition with everything inside of it was a Criterion release of 8.5. And I picked it up, and I picked up two other movies. And the guy behind the counter, he's not a movie collector. He didn't even, any movies he watches were probably just whatever came out in theaters the last few months. And he had a customer in front of him, and he looks at me. He sees these three cases in my hand. He goes, "Yeah, give me $1.50." I gave him the $1.50, and I walked out. So I got basically a Criterion Blu-ray of 8.5 for 50 cents. And
Yeah.
I was rushing to get that $1.50 out
Now,
of my
when you walked out, did you feel like, so this is how it feels for John? Because that guy gets the best deal. I walk out there like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
just for this much, I feel like Plat X2. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. John is my guy. Shout out to John. John is my guy.
Yeah, John's my boy too, man. I love his videos, man. He's such a cool cat.
Oh,
He used to be Tribe. He used to be the man. Ken from Peppermint Tribe, but he sort of, I don't know what happened to him. I mean, I don't know, once in a blue moon he'll post, but I think John has taken over his taking a title as finding the best deals. I mean, he just finds some amazing stuff.
yeah, he does. I mean, what was it? A few months back, he came up with a whole box of like 600 titles. He came up for free or something like that.
The CDs.
Yeah,
Yeah, 200. He had 200 CDs. I felt really bad for him too. The chat is popping. Let's check in with the chat real quick. Rick is still hanging out with us from Underground Sobrosa. We got to get him back on the show.
okay. Right. Real quick, Pat. Can you still hear me? Because my mic is doing something funny here.
Nope, we hear you perfect.
Okay, cool.
Let's see. Hobbs is mentioning Dell. If you like jazz music, You should check out our good friend Emotion, incredible talent, also former guest. Yeah, we had Emotion on the show. He's a tremendous he's a jazz and R&B singer.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been getting some musicians on the show. Um and see, and he's sharing you out. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that, Hobbs. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Hi,
Thanks a lot.
Katie. Katie just walked in through the door. Thank
Hey,
you,
Katie.
Katie. Um, yeah. What has been your best deal that you've found so far?
That Criterion one for 8.5 is tough to beat. That that's that might be my best. That's pretty tough. Um, I would say recently. Oh well, here's another one. Here's another one. At another pawn shop. Um, it was an overseas release of a Lethal Weapon box set, all 4 movies, Blu-ray,
Oh
and
wow.
I got that for $1.
Yeah. Probably because nobody had the because it's probably they probably was probably like region 2 or region 3.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, I you know what I get asked that a bit about the best as far as singular goes. I mean, I did get a copy of Z on Criterion,
Okay.
factory seal. I got that for 25 cents a few weeks ago.
Wow,
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. That was like
that's
you're
pretty
serious.
good.
Um, but I don't. I think a bag sale I had maybe like a month ago. No, I tell you the best thing I probably got. I had two at the library. One with I got 10 Criterions for $1 a piece, and
Ooh,
then after that, then I got 19 film movement movies. Someone donated their whole massive 19 film movement. I'm not sure if you're aware of who they are,
no.
but they are amazing films. Amazing films. They're like
What what are they called again?
a film movement.
Okay.
And what they do is they feature foreign films plus American, and on it they feature a feature film and a short. And it's a subscription service. You subscribe to them, and they send you a movie a month, and it has the feature and the short. I discovered that through Family Video, and hell, uh,
Yeah,
and
cool.
so after so when someone donated 19 to the library, I got them all for a dime a piece. They were doing a
Wow.
dime. That's probably my very best deal.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty tough to beat.
Here's our good friend Mike checking in from the UK. Uh, uh, awesome guy. One of our favorite movie channels as well. He's always coming in, checking in, and saying hi. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming in. Um, and thank you again for sharing out, Hobbs. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, Hobbs
Um,
is doing great PR work out there. I appreciate that, Hobbs.
yeah, no doubt, right? No doubt. Now I've been whispering in his ear to restart a segment that on the midnight hour had us when we first started going on the midnight hour. Uh, Actually, before this series splintered, it spun off from the midnight hour because we were doing interviews. We started doing interviews over there, and then it spun off to do this. Um, and so I've been whispering to Hobbs' ear that I think they should start doing some interviews because they have some really fun people on the show over there. Uh, I told him that he should start talking to some, getting some guests on there. So I think that might be happening. I'm hopefully it will be happening soon.
Okay.
Because you interview people as well. You have people on your show. You have what I feel is right now probably one of the top 5 series going among any YouTube channel that I follow, and that's
Well,
Movie Swap.
thank
So
you.
let's talk a little bit about Movie Swap.
Yeah,
Where did you come up with the idea?
it really is kind of a culmination of what I've been doing all my life. I've grew up watching movies. I love movies, talk movies with my friends. Back in the 80s when I was growing up, we would just talk all day. Schwarzenegger movies, Stallone movies. What kids were into at that time. As I got older, just kept watching movies. Worked at Blockbuster and had to recommend movies to people and got pretty good at that. And that's gone away, of course. And I don't have anybody in my personal life that I can talk obscure movies with. Let me put it that way. Not necessarily obscure, but just movies that are not the biggest things at the box office. Like, I have family members and friends that like movies, but not to the level that I like movies. And we're not going to sit down and have an hour and change conversation about one movie. So it's like, you know what? I like recommending movies to people, and I got a bunch of movies that are still on my watch list that I've never seen. So let them recommend me a movie, and we can talk about them both and see if we liked what we recommended to each other.
Yeah, I like that whole idea, and I like the idea. Mike says, "Hello, Dell. Hope you're doing well."
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mike.
that's awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate that. You're right. Because I love the I love the obscure movies myself. I mean,
Mhm.
anybody comes over and looks at my channel, looks at and go like, "Where's all the blockbusters?"
Right.
Not here.
Yeah, and
Not,
don't get me wrong. I mean, I have plenty of blockbuster movies, and even
mhm.
on Movie Swap, sometimes we'll have some blockbuster movies, but we'll also get some obscure stuff in there too. We'll get some, some French horror. We'll get some B movie that nobody really knows, or just a movie that flew under the radar. And because I want to experience, all sorts of cinema, and that's why I have try to get all sorts of people on the channel to, what are you going to recommend me? And sometimes they'll recommend me just something that was big at the box office that just, sometimes somehow I missed. So, and then other times they'll recommend me something that I never heard of. And it's like, man, that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That's what we do the IFC midnights once every Sunday in the last Sunday of every month because nobody really talks about IFC films other than a very very tiny group of us. Hobbs has covered a few IFC films. I do it with Ben and Haas and Mary Wilson. Um, I know that Night for Night Watch Zone, he's an IFC fan too. It's just not very many of us that willing to go out there and talk about it. So I get it. And I love when it's an obscure film. When it's a
Hmm.
film I don't, if it's a film I don't know about, that's to me that review. I'll watch that review more than I will if someone sits there and say, "Yeah, I'm reviewing," I'm reviewing Night Swim.
Right.
I'm not going to be doing that because everybody else is doing it. But when someone comes up there and says, "Yeah, I'm gonna review Monstrosity," Hobbs and I, we did that. We reviewed that little movie during October. But if someone comes up there and does something like that, that catches my attention because it's a movie I've never heard of. I've
Yeah.
never I've never heard of, I've never seen, and I'm curious, like, really, that is cool as hell. And black and white movies, I rarely get to see that.
Mhm.
I rarely see anybody going deep into the 30s, the 40s, the 50s for that sort of thing. You don't really see those very much.
There,
Um,
there, there are Bluetubers out there who specialize in that. Um, really old movies. That is a channel name. He's got a great channel, and that's what he does. He talks about really old movies, except real spelled REEL, really that way. Tim Talks Talkies. I saw in the chat. He loves classic cinema. Um, so yeah, there's channels out there. If you just gotta look like we were talking about with the Blu-ray hunting or physical media hunting, you gotta look for them.
so you started when you started Movie Swap. What was the first movie? Who was your first guest, and what movie did you show up? What movie did you bring for that?
The first guest was actually KB. KB loves movies. Another one of my guys, a friend that I've made online, and he suggested to me. We talking about black and white movies. He had me watch It Happened One Night with Clark Gable from back in the day, and I had him watch a movie called Mother. Mother is a Korean movie directed by Bong Joon-ho, who's everybody knows for Parasite. And but this came before Parasite, years before. So those were the first two movies on Movie Swap.
Wow, that's cool. Did he like your choice?
He did, and he was a Bong Joon Ho fan, so he
Okay.
was already kind of like, okay, I need to see this because I haven't seen this one, and I liked his choice. I liked It Happened One Night also. So yeah, we both got introduced to something new. It doesn't always work out that I like the movie or they
I
like
was
my
gonna ask
movie.
you. I was gonna ask you, has someone brought a movie to the party that you like? Uh,
Yeah, yeah, there's been a few movies like that. Um, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. My guy Caveman, he had me watch a movie that it just didn't work for me. I can't remember off the top of my head what the movie was right now, probably because I didn't like it very much. Uh, the twins, Mika and Kira. I don't know if you're familiar with them. I know some of the people in the chat are familiar with Mika and Kira Double Feature Podcast. They was it Mika? I think it might have been Kira, but it had me watch Terms of Endearment, which I had never seen,
Okay.
and that's an Oscar-winning movie, and that was another movie I just didn't really care for.
Was it because of the subject matter, or is this because of the acting, or
No, no, no. The subject matter's fine. The acting was fine. I just thought the way the story was executed just was poor because I thought the story focused on the less interesting characters, and that's kind of big on for me when I watch a movie. If you have a more interesting character that is, especially if that actor is giving a compelling performance, then that's the one I want to know about, not this lame duck character that you set in front of me. And that was my problem with Terms of Endearment. Um, the mother-in-law, and I'm forgetting the actress's name right now, but the mother-in-law,
Shirley
um,
MacLaine?
yes, Shirley MacLaine. Thank you. I thought her character was outstanding. She was the most interesting person in the movie for me. Her and her relationship with her daughter and with Jack Nicholson's character, who was the next door neighbor. I wanted more of that. And what I got, just the story that they gave me just didn't work well for me. And
Uh,
especially since I didn't like the daughter who was the main character or her ex-husband or soon to be ex-husband. I didn't like him either. So
uh,
that's where I was.
when you watch a movie, I mean, when you watch a movie during movie swap, and well, has anybody ever have you ever recommended any movies that somebody else has said no to?
Yeah, yeah, all the
Oh,
time.
really?
Well, see, the way it works, because and I'm gonna let everybody behind the scenes a little bit, and a couple of guests I think have been on Movie Swap, a couple of the people in the chat rather, but I don't know what people have seen, and they don't know what I've seen for the most part, right? So
Yeah.
my deal is okay. I'm gonna send you a list of 10 movies that I would recommend, and you send me a list of 10 movies that you would recommend. Now, once we get to the actual show, once we get to the actual movie swap, I don't share the list. We just talk about the movies that were selected because you're gonna pick one that you've never seen before, and I'm gonna pick one from your list that I've never seen before, and we're just gonna go with those two movies. So I don't share those lists. So when I'm getting the next person, next guest ready, whatever list they come up with is whatever on the list. And sure, I've seen movies recommended multiple times or I've recommended movies to one person and they've said no, they picked something else that was on my list. And I just recommended it to another person. And then eventually somebody picks it, or I just say, you know what? I don't really want to see that one anymore again. So I'll recommend something else.
That's fun. Now, have you been surprised by a movie like someone recommended to you and you never heard of? And you sit down and you go like, "Holy shit! How the hell did I miss that?"
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, the movie recommended by was this the first time I had I'm kind of looking back at my channel if you give me a second to do that. But yeah, there's been a few times when I've looked at I can't even do it now. But yeah, there's been a few times where My Name is Sarah. That's a movie. That's a movie that was recommended to me. I'd never heard of the movie, and it's only come out about 5, 6 years ago. Um,
Okay.
and the opening is a brutal opening, and then all the way through the movie, occasionally there's brutal things happening to this woman whose name is Sarah. But by the end of it, I was like, wow, that was really good movie. And I never heard of this movie. And like I said, it only came out in like 2016, 17, something like that. So I was surprised that A, I had never heard of it. B, nobody told me how good it was. And I really had a good time with it.
Um, do when you buy your for films from your collection, do you blind buy? How do you and or do you ever take recommendations from people when they say, you hear them talk about movies and you listen to them and you respect them well enough to know that, hey, if they say it's pretty good, you're going to go ahead and give it a twirl, even though it will be a blind buy to you. Or do you look at other critics, to help make your choice, or do you do all your picking independently?
I'm close to doing it all independently. Not quite. I'm close to doing it all independent because I do a lot of it by feel. Only thing I kind of go in with a preconceived notion of what I'm going to buy is, when we get the Criterion sale and it's like, okay, well, they released this and this year. I'm going to get those titles. But other than that, I kind of do it by feel, whatever I feel when it hits me, unless of course, it's a new release that I want to get. But there are few people who I look at their channel and listen to them talk about a movie, and it's like, oh man, I know that movie's good. I'm gonna see if I can get my hands on it. And if I don't get my hands on it, at least if I don't buy it, I'm at least gonna try and watch it.
Well, I think thanks for doing that. It makes me feel good knowing that you come over and see what I will see what I watch and what I review, and you go out there and get it.
Absolutely.
Nobody does that. I have yet to have any. Oh no, that's not true. I gotta slow my roll there. That's not true because what kind of feeling do you get when you do recommend a movie that no one has really talked about? Like it's like two of the movies right now that just really like stand out for me. Like people say, well, give me two movies. Like if I was going on a movie swap, I could tell you these two right now that I would recommend to you. One would be Brightwood, and the other one would be Swallow. Those two right now are just they're amazing movies to me. Brightwood was my number one, and I did recommend it to somebody, and I said, yeah, you got to check this movie out. And it came by, and you do your top list, your top 20, top of the end of the year. The movie that I recommended to them was their number one movie of the year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was so shocked. I was like, that's so
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
It's like someone actually paid attention. Someone took a chance and gave what I recommended to watch. That's so cool, because a lot of times people say I haven't seen it yet, or I'll get to it, or what have you, and then that's the end of it.
Right.
Do you get people who watch Movie Swap and go ahead and check out the movie that you recommended and come back to you and said, Dell, man, you were spot on that?
I've had a couple people do that, and yeah, it's a feeling of validation. It's like, yeah, I was right. I know what I'm talking about sometimes. So yeah, so that is a great feeling when that happens. But to go back to your two movies though, I have seen Swallow. Swallow is amazing. I really like that movie, and my daughter actually put me on to Swallow. For anybody who doesn't know, I have three adult children. They're not children. So my youngest daughter is in college, and when she was home, she kind of likes to find obscure, weird little movies, and then she'll say, "Hey, Dad, let's watch this." Okay, let's go for it. And Swallow was one of those movies, and we sat there and watched it, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good." I think I liked it better than she did by the time it was over.
It's a great movie. I do you follow different performers? I mean, different actors. Do you have your own personal favorites, favorite actors, directors, and actresses?
Everybody does, right? I mean, we all
I
have
would
our
like to think
favorites.
so. I would definitely like to think so.
Yeah. I mean,
I know. I'm looking at the chat. I know that Hobbs loves Fairuza Balk. That's one of his favorite actresses. He goes and tries to watch a lot of her movies that she appears in. Um, I know that. God, I have not really even, I've not, I really haven't asked that much. I mean, I talked to different actors and whatnot, and ask them
mhm.
who would like to share a scene with. But um, as far as favorites go, I mean, that's a really interesting question. I mean, I'm looking at the people in the chat. I'm trying to think of if I know the people who they like the best in their movies, and I guess there's such a variety. Um, Jim's mentioning we all have our favorites.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we
like I
do.
know a lot of people love Kiefer Sutherland. I
Uh-huh.
know a lot of people love him. I know a lot of people like a lot of the stars from the '80s. So yeah, it's Anthony Hopkins is. I know people mention that and that the great favorite of theirs. All the '80s screen queens.
Yeah, I
That's
saw
right.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Linnea
Yeah.
Quigley all day, right?
Oh gosh. Silent Night, Deadly Night. You just want to go out there and bitch slap Santa
All right.
because
So
he
here's
put
one of mine
tail
from
off.
back then. Well,
Yeah,
really, probably more 90s than 80s. But what do you think of Julie Strain?
oh yeah, I love Julie.
Yeah,
You
I
know
was
what
big.
happened to her, right?
No, I don't.
So when she was younger, she was riding a horse and she got kicked in the head by the horse,
Wow.
and so like she recovered from that, but it had long lasting consequences. And when she was barely in her 60s, she developed dementia from that injury.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
I mean, I remember reading about her in the 80s on Fangoria. She was on Fangoria all the time. Anything she did horror, she was in it.
Yeah,
And she,
she was everywhere. She was
yeah,
everywhere. Another one of my favorite screen queen. Well, it's not really a screen queen, more the erotic thriller queen from back in the day was Shannon Worry.
yes.
Used to watch
How
a
about
lot of Shannon Worry movies.
Joan Severance
Yeah. Uh-huh.
back in the
That's
day?
another one.
Wow. Hey, Jamie, how are you? There's the queen. There's the queen of all horror. Jamie Hart in the house.
How you doing, Jamie?
Let me take that back. Queen of almost all horror, because there are a couple of things that Jamie does not like.
Oh.
Uh, what surprised me, we had so much fun. We've been having so much fun. We're talking about one of those movies that you recommend to people, and
Mhm.
some it doesn't work out. Sort of blows up in your face. Like, hey, check this out. Like I like Skinner Morenik.
I still haven't watched it yet.
You have not seen that yet.
No, I'm almost scared to watch it because I mean I'm like watching two groups of people with pitchforks on either side arguing about this movie. It's like everybody one side is the greatest thing ever, and the other side is like the worst thing ever.
That's okay. I like it. I'm not going to say it's the best thing ever, but I did like it. I thought it was very cool, and it had a complete story to it. And it's you got to stay with it. I feel I already know I'm going to get roasted. I feel it's very David Lynch like, so I really like it that way. Really like the obscure, experimental, different the different camera angles. I thought it was just but some people who absolutely love David Lynch, they don't see it that way. And
Mhm.
I totally respect the person. It's Jamie. Totally respect that. But yeah, what I like about that movie was it was this year's Halloween Ends. Skinner
Okay.
Morenik was this year's Halloween Ends, because you saw what happened when Halloween came.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like there was
Yep.
no middle ground on a movie. It's like you either hated it or you loved it. And so Skinner Morenik for me, that was the movie for this year. You just it wasn't one of those movies you could sit there and say, yeah, well, that's all right. No, you weren't doing that. You're gonna go like give it the Oscar to
Right.
Burn in Hell.
Right. There you go. I see the chat is kind of flaming you about this David Lynch comment
See,
here.
I know. It says here. Let's see. Jamie says she's not the only person who hated Skinner Morenik. No, she's not.
Not.
But she's we're talking earlier about people listen to other people's voices. Jamie's voice, I was of all the people who when I watched Skinner Morenik, I was watching the movie, the one person who I really wanted to share the movie with, because I really wanted to see what her opinion was Jamie.
Okay.
That's who when I was watching the movie, I'm going, I wonder what Jamie would think about this. Because it's like it's so David Lynch like. And so uh and I'd really like to see what she thinks about it. And then when she came back and says, yeah, I hate that shit. But that's what makes movies so unique and so magical, is because not everything is going to be as you expect. I mean, some movies you go in there and you like have high expectations, and then you get in there and it's like, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's the motor at? And
Yeah.
then and you're disappointed. And then there's some movies where you don't know anything about, like Swallow. You walk in there and it's like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How come nobody knows about this movie? Let me tell some other people about it.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Jim is saying, Jim says that he doesn't see David Lynch's Skin Morenik either. Let's see. To die hard Lynch fans in the chat. One more Lynch comparison and we riot. I'm sorry, but I'm going to stand by that. I'm gonna have to stand by my because I love my favorite David Lynch movie is Eraserhead, which is
Okay.
one of the most. Have you ever seen Eraserhead?
I haven't, and let me talk about David Lynch for a minute. So I've seen only two. I've seen Mulholland Drive. I've
Hmm.
seen Elephant Man. I thought the Elephant Man was pretty good, and I didn't care for Mulholland Drive. I've seen it
Okay.
twice now, so
Uh-oh.
from what I've been told, I got about three more viewings in me before I actually like the movie. So
I,
I'm kind of hesitant to go forward with David Lynch, and it's crazy because I actually own Inland Empire too, and I haven't watched it. But that's one of the things I do want to do this year is watch more of his movies to see if I really don't like him or if it's just that movie.
it's just gonna be just that movie.
Okay.
But Mulholland Drive is an amazing movie. It's definitely a multi. It's a movie that you have to see more than once to get it. Um, my wife actually made it through Mulholland Drive. I mean, she was like, "What's going on? What's going on with it?" And I'm like, I'll explain to you after the movie's over with." But it was
Right.
so good, you know. I know everybody talks about Naomi Watts and that scene, but
Yeah.
man, I really love Laura Herring in that movie.
She
Man,
was the star of the movie. She was the
yeah,
best part of the movie for me.
me
Like
too.
I've seen it twice. It's been some years since my last viewing, so I definitely need to, like I said, watch it maybe several more times before I figure it out.
I
And
think that's what's going to have to
Jamie gave
happen
me a
for.
great comment in the she gave me a great comment about the movie. Something I wasn't quite sure of. So that's hey, I'll take any help I can from before I go into that next watch of it.
Now, see, that's the same thing with Skinner Rennick. See, Skinner Rennick, the first 3 quarters of the movie, it does seem like a dream, and the last quarter is reality,
Okay.
and it shows it. And but it's not 2/3; it's like 3 quarters. It's an hour and 40-minute movie, so it's a little longer. So it has that same structure as Mulholland Drive in that sense, because, like I said, the first 3 quarters is a dream. I mean, you look at the whole movie; it's so surreal and so and you can see that this is not reality. This is like, but we don't know. We don't know exactly what we're looking at, which is
Okay.
why if you're not familiar with Lynch's films, and or even into a sense Cronenberg films, I can understand how you sort of get lost in it. Like I don't, but then again, us who love David Lynch and Cronenberg and some other directors, like Darren Aronofsky. He's another one that has really interesting movies.
Now,
Um,
I do like Darren Aronofsky. I really do
me
like him.
too. Me too. I watched when Mother came out, and people were just like, "There you go, so decisive." It's like 80% of the people are going like, "What the hell is that? I can't see Jennifer Lawrence," and the other 20% going like, "That's a cool hell movie. That's a movie. That's a deep movie."
I
I,
was
I
in
was
that
I was sitting
20%.
in the 20. I was sitting in the 20%.
I was
I
in that
knew
20%.
exactly. Yeah, I knew what he was talking about. I knew what he was saying. It was very cool.
Hmm.
And but the rest of the people were like, I don't get it. I want my money back. And it was just like, you know, I felt in a way I sort of felt sorry for him. I sort of feel sorry for people who I just encourage them to watch it again. Not here, because I trust Jamie. She knows a good movie when it comes up and shakes her hand. She knows it. She
Hmm.
might not like Skinner Morenik. She might not like it, but she won't deny that it's not good. It's just not her. This is not
Right.
for her. I could watch a movie and not like it, but still appreciate what the filmmaker's trying to do.
Right.
Well, then there's some movies I just absolutely hate the director, and just I have no compassion for the movie. I have nothing vested in it. I just don't like it. Are there movies out there for you that you would avoid, that you don't like, that you just like someone recommends it to you and you're going like, hell no, I'm not watching that shit.
Just like the super duper extreme stuff, like Salo or something like that. I've read enough about the movie. I'm like, I don't need that in my life. I can bypass that. Let me watch something else. So stuff like that where they're just pushing the boundaries of good taste a little too far. I don't mind pushing the boundaries of good taste, but there is a point at which I'm like, that's even too far for me. From what I've read about a movie like that, that's too far for me. I haven't watched the Human Centipede movies. I'm like, I don't see the point. So There,
Uh, I'm gonna suggest one movie that I watched too that I reviewed. To Jamie, I'm gonna put it in the chat. I don't know if she's seen it or not. I'm gonna ask her if she's seen it. Have you ever seen a movie called Southbound, Jamie?
I've heard of Southbound, but I haven't seen it
That,
myself.
that's a really good movie. It's an anthology film, but it's really cool. It's also, dare I say it without getting, it's there. There's a lot of David Lynch influence in that movie
Uh-oh.
too.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
gonna get in trouble over here.
It's a really good movie though. I really liked it. I had heard about it too, and I said, okay, let me give this a twirl for Halloween. So I went ahead and I watched it. And I was just sitting there going like, yeah, this is dope. I like that movie a lot. Um, yeah, but I'm like you. I mean, I find myself trying to push myself out of my comfort level. Like last year I watched Martyrs for the first time.
So did I
Uh,
actually.
Man, that's a
Yeah,
good movie.
it
That's a
is.
good. Wow. I don't like torture porn at all. I'm with you. Like a Serbian film
Yes, there's another one. Yeah.
a Serbian film. No, Solo. No, those type of movies. I Spit on Your Grave. Hell no. Um, but I watched Martyrs and I was blown away. I was so vested in the story. I'm sitting, I'm sitting here too. I'm watching the TV, and I got my remote right there. And when the chairperson bends over to hear what she's going to say, I'm cranking
Mhm.
my volume up because I want to hear what she's going to say. I want to know what she's going to say. I was so vested in it. I was like, what is it? What does she see? What does she see? And then so it was so interesting. Um, but some
For
of those other films,
for me, for Martyrs, I had for years heard about this movie. Oh, it's the most disturbing movie. Is this? Is that? And so when I sat down to watch it, I had no idea that there was actual depth to the story, and that's what made it good. Yes, there's a lot of torture in this movie, and it's graphic and bloody and all that, but there's actual depth to the story. The filmmaker's actually trying to say something, and I appreciated that about.
uh, back.
Yeah, I was just saying I appreciated that the filmmaker was really actually trying to say something with the movie. It wasn't just torture for torture's sake. Like,
Right.
it wasn't like Saw 6 where we're just, seeing how far we can twist the human body.
You know, you know what? That's a really interesting thing to say too, because when Saul first started out, it didn't start out as that.
Right.
Like the first three movies were just, and the first three movies were just amazing. And then Spiral popped up. I put Spiral with the first three,
Hmm.
but between four to Spiral, um, has and it's just they're amazing films. There's points to the story. I think Saw 2 is better than Saw 1.
Hmm.
I remember the whole theater was we're all in the theater. I remember watching Saw 2, and at the end of it, when the ending popped out, everybody in that theater was like gasping because they didn't see it coming. They
Right.
didn't see that at all. Nobody did. We're sitting there and the one scene where they show Shawnee Smith into the needles, people were just like, you
Yeah.
could see everybody just like doing this. It's
Yeah.
just like people were just. It was like intense.
It's tough.
After that, though, when you started hearing people just talk about the traps, like, okay, here's a new Saw movie. I wonder what traps they're gonna do. And it's
Yeah.
like,
That's
to me, that's
all
just
you
when
want to see.
it slid into storytelling into just shock value,
Yeah.
and that ended it for me. I have not seen a Saw. I have not seen Saw from four till 4 through 10. I have not seen any of those. Um,
Okay.
I just I don't know. Though I've heard that everyone stands has different merits, but I just overwhelmingly heard over and over and over the traps, the traps, the traps. It's like before the first two, it was always like I didn't see that coming. I didn't see it coming. I was surprised. I was surprised. So they were vested in the story.
Yeah.
Um,
The first few movies, the traps were part of the story. After that, the traps became the story,
yeah,
and there's a difference there. And like you said, we're slipping into shock value. and you can do that and still try to say something and make a good movie out of it, like with Martyrs. Or recently, going back to Movie Swap, I had Celeste De La Cabra on, and they had me watch Inside, and that is a gory, gruesome movie. And I sat in my chair at home, and I was basically balled up into the fetal position for a lot of this movie, going, "Oh my god!" But it was still an interesting film that was trying to do things on an intellectual level while simultaneously grossing you out. It wasn't just the gross out. And I
No,
appreciated that.
I was like that too with last year's Frost. I
Hmm.
watched last year with that was with Vernon Wells and Devon E. Penn, and it's one of those movies where Hobbs had actually watched it. Hobbs watched it,
Okay.
and Hobbs is hardcore horror. I mean, that guy can handle that sort of shit. But when I see somebody who loves horror films, like they really love horror films, um, and they come up there like with the Relic, like I mentioned this before, Horrific Nightmares JM. He's a fellow ISC guy. He
Hmm.
loves movies, and him and I were talking about Relic, and he says that movie fucked me up. Boy, my ears went like this. Ping! It's like
Yeah.
my radar's on, radar alert. Like okay, because if that movie fucked him up and that guy's seen just about everything, I want to see that. I
Yeah.
want to see
What
that.
could possibly have done that to that
Yeah,
person, right?
right. So it's like all of a sudden when I hear that from someone who's like, like because watching horror as much as a lot of us do, and that's one of the reasons why I don't watch everything I watch is horror because I want to be shocked, I want to be surprised, I want to be moved, um, you know, and it's like if I sit there and I watch, if I watch all horror all the time, to quote somebody's catchphrase, I'm going to be desensitized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing's gonna move me. Nothing's gonna move me emotionally. Nothing's gonna move me. When I was watching Swallow, I was just like, wow, that just blew me away.
Yeah.
Watching,
Yeah.
watching her go through that, I was just like so moved by that.
Hmm.
Martyrs. I mean, I won't lie to you. When I watched Martyrs, man, toward the end of it, man, I was like, I was leaking. I was, I was feeling her pain. I was like,
Stuff.
this is so sad. It's fascinating, but it's sad as hell. But but when someone mentions like I watched Relic, and I can see exactly why it was so messed up for him. I totally get it. It's an allegorical film, and it's a deep movie, and it is a movie, and it affects us all. Um, let's see. Jamie mentions. I said I will be redeemed because she'll love Southbound. Um, Redeemed. You're still. Oh, I know you're not mad at me, but I know that once you watch Southbound, you'll come back there and say, "Hell yeah, you got one right," and that's all right.
Got one right.
Um, and I even have a personal tidbit for that movie. One of the people in that movie, his name was David Yao, and he was a singer for a band called the Jesus Lizard. And I booked him 3 shows. I booked 3 shows with the band.
Oh,
I
cool.
was shocked when I saw him on the movie. I'm like, I know that face. How did I know that face? And there it was at the credits, David Yao. I'm like, holy shit, that's amazing. I didn't know he was doing acting. Um,
That's cool.
yeah. So have you? So going back to your early days growing up. I mean, one thing I do like about your channel too, Dell, is that you don't do all horror all the time. You
No.
do watch a lot of variety. What is other than horror? What are some of your favorite genres that you do watch?
I try to watch everything now. Now, I mean, it grew up in the 80s, so yeah, action is like my main thing because I just grew up during that time. Um, is that a rom com? Is that what I'm looking at? I can't
Yeah,
see it.
yeah, it's a rom com. So
Okay.
you're a Hallmark guy. All right, that's
And
good.
I'm not a Hallmark guy. I will say
What?
that because I think their movies are too schmaltzy. But yeah, I try to watch everything. If I have to say my favorite genres, though, it would really be martial arts. That's what I grew up on. It would be superheroes. I grew up on that stuff,
Yeah.
and and action, and then even sci-fi. just if I broke, I could keep going because I don't really have one favorite genre. But if the biggest one would probably be superheroes that everybody knows, and then martial arts. But yeah, whatever movie recommends is recommended to me. For the most part, I'm like, okay, let's watch it. And this is what happens in my house. I watch a lot of movies by myself because everybody's not like that. But then when the family wants to watch a movie, that hey, you want to watch those? Put it in. You don't know what
Yeah,
it's about? Yeah, put it in.
whenever when Blockbuster was around, when me and my wife we would go down there, they had the 4 for $20 sale, so
Oh
we would
yeah,
go down to Blockbuster, and when I go in there, and initially we go in there together, but after a while, she's just like, you go ahead and do it. So
yeah,
when I knew when I went in there, I had to buy. I could get one movie for me, one movie for her, and two I knew that we could watch together.
right,
You know, and so that's how I did it. That's and I never watched any horror because she didn't like horror films. Though she did go venture out once in a while. She did venture out.
right.
And I told her it wasn't too scary if it was PG-13. So she saw The Sixth Sense with me, and she saw Unbreakable. Um,
Cool.
so because yeah, I thought so too. I was impressed,
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, and she trusted me because I would never put her into a situation where she was uncomfortable.
yeah.
But then the horror movie I would watch by myself. It's like
I that's actually how my collection started because I was working at Blockbuster at that time and they were doing those sales, the 3 for 20, 4 for 20 DVD, used DVD sales. So that's how my collection really started because I was working there and I got a discount. So, I'd just be bringing home movies every week practically. And then before you knew it, I had shelves of movies. And it's interesting, you mentioned horror with the other people in my wife's not a horror person. Um, she'll watch it if there's enough buzz around it that makes her excited to see it. Like, the Jordan Peele movies have a lot of buzz around them with our family and friends. So she's okay. She'll watch those, or if if her friends are kind of talking about it, she might watch it. And then the other thing is, if and she's not watching now. I know she's not watching because she just came in the door. Um, if I ask her to watch a horror movie, she'll say no, no matter what. If I ask her to watch it, she'll say no.
uh,
But if I put one on and she walks in the room, she'll sit and watch for a while.
okay,
If it
okay.
gets too much for her, she'll leave the room and then come back in about 15 minutes and go, "What I miss?" So
That's
it's
so
funny
cool.
that way.
That's
But
so cool.
yeah, so I have fun teasing her with that. But yeah, but going back to Blockbuster, like I said, I was working there at that time. That's how I started collecting.
How many films do you have in your collection?
Uh, if you just talk about individual films, it's about 2,400.
Damn.
Now, when you talk about purchases, a lot of them are in box sets, this, that, and the other. So it's about 1,800 purchases total. But yeah, individual films, it's about 2,400.
And one thing I noticed about you too is that you still buy DVDs.
Every once in a while, I've been slowly but surely lately kind of not buying them, unless it's something that I know cannot be found on Blu-ray. And one of my other genres that I kind of like is 70s exploitation, black exploitation movies, and a lot of those are not on Blu-ray. So you're out in some thrift shop somewhere and you come across a copy of something. It's like, oh wow, and you grab that.
What do you think of that term? Do you think
Black
that term? Do you
exploitation.
think? Yeah. Do you think that term is an honorific, or do you think it's sort of a? Do you think it's just a stereotype?
I think it's a stereotypical term, or actually, well, I think it's a misused term that's become adopted
Yeah.
because technically, black exploitation it really refers to black people in Hollywood or black people in the music, in not music, but in the movie industry being exploited. It's they're all these black faces on the screen and playing to the lowest denominator to get black people in the seats, and usually with white people behind the scenes as far as the directors and producers. And there are a lot of movies like that, but it's also been applied to any movie now. As we've moved further away from the 70s, it's applied to any movie from the 70s that has black people in it.
Yeah.
So it's
I don't like the term. I know I mean I've heard the term. I just don't think it fits.
right,
I just don't think it fits.
right.
I
Um,
mean, yes, there's some movies that were, some black movies that were low budgeted, much less than white movies, but the stories were just as compelling. The stories were, the acting was just as good. The stories were gritty. There's just this. I mean, what's the difference between honestly? What's the difference between watching a movie like Superfly versus watching a movie like Easy Rider? I mean, they're both gritty. They're both maybe it's just one's a little bit more rural, one's a little bit more urban, but they're basically almost like the same thing. They're about people trying to find a better way. Uh,
Unfortunately, it really comes down to the color of the people on the screen, and the movie industry, especially at that time, being like, "Hey, you know what? There's that black dollar out there that we're not getting enough of. Well, let's throw more black faces on the screen, and they'll show up." So we get the Superflies, and we get all these other movies. And a lot of times, speaking to the fact that there's really not a lot of difference between a lot of these movies, you'll we had the black versions of movies. Like Shaft was kind of like the black James Bond, and then you had Blackula, and then you had Black this and Black that, even though the storylines were very similar to what was in the mainstream. And it really just came down to Hollywood saying, okay, well, white people are not going to go see these movies with black folks in them, and black folks are not seeing as many of these movies with white folks in them. So let's give them all their own movies.
yeah, it's almost like segregation at the theater.
Yeah. And not to, I mean, to push movie swap again, but I had
Please do.
Big
I
Chris.
encourage you to push it.
Yeah, I had Big Chris on from Floyd House Flicks, and him and I had a real good conversation about this very topic, actually.
Okay, okay. What do you feel about this? I mean, because you're a little older, like myself.
Mhm,
So a lot of young people today, they look at movies and TV, and they see a lot of representation. Whereas you and I, when we grew up, we didn't see that many representation, or if we did, it was always stereotyped.
mhm,
You know, if we every time there was a black show before the Jeffersons, they were always like Good Times or Sanford and Son or any of those other types. They're always shown being poor and struggling.
mhm,
I think Jeffersons like the first time we ever saw an American black family that was successful and powerful in their own right. Even though they played it for laughs, but you still couldn't dismiss the fact that they bought an apartment in the sky. They're doing pretty damn well. Um,
true. And I'm glad you said the Jeffersons and not the Cosby Show, and not because I have anything against the Cosby Show, because I grew up on that show, and despite what became of Bill Cosby, I grew up with that show being a great show, an integral part of Hollywood going forward. But the Jeffersons were first, and you're right. They showed an affluent black family. So before that, there was, like you said, there was Sanford and Son. It was Good Times. Uh, there was the show with Diane Carroll, which I'm drawing a blank on right now. Um,
Julia.
yeah, Julia. There you go. We got all those kinds of shows. Even for other races, we had like Chico and the Man, and
Right. Again, back down, struggling to get up.
right,
It was very
right,
rare to
exactly.
see a successful Latino or any minority. Is always very hard for them to, you know, and that's one thing about black exploitation films. Like, they didn't really show that. Every time we saw a movie, it was always jive talking. It was always they're always coming up talking street and whatnot. It reinforced the stereotype in one sense, but the other hand is like, but that's how it was,
Hmm.
and it's sort of it's hard to because I hear a lot of people mention that like, man, they were just exploited. It was like, no, they weren't exploiting them at all. That's what it was like for them down there. The people went to the theater because they could relate to the struggle that the characters were having on screen. But the fact of the matter is, though, is like they're not everyone is like that. It's not like that for every person, for every minority. There's plenty of successful minorities, and we got to get them represented. We got to show that. We just can't have you know ghetto movies or shows because that's just not right. It's just
Yeah.
not. It's offensive.
And even going back to those 70s movies and talking about the term black exploitation again, that you were kind of leaning back into that. If you look back at that set of movies that we call black exploitation, there there is a line, there is a difference between the movies that had white writers, especially white writers and directors and
Oh,
producers, versus the films that were produced by black writers and directors. Not always black producers, but there were black producers. So, for instance, the films that leaned most heavily into the stereotypes tended to be from the white filmmakers, and the films that took a more rounded look at the characters on the screen tended to be from the black filmmakers, like your Gordon Parks and so on and so forth.
it's funny. It's like I didn't really realize this till I got old enough to know. But you go back to a lot of these movies and TV series, and not to necessarily knock it, because one respect, at least it got made, but two, you go back and look at it now and you're going like, man, that's not, it didn't age at all, at all. You
Yeah,
go back to shows like Jefferson's or Good Times, or or whatnot, or Sanford and Son, and you see nothing but Jewish writers writing this,
right.
written by, and it's like Joe Goldberg, and it's like, yeah, that's not really, back then maybe, maybe, but now when you see that on the credits, you see that and you go like, that's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, yeah,
That's where the exploitation comes from, you know?
yeah. Expectation, and we've matured as an audience.
Hmm.
So since the 70s and 80s, it's not enough just to have minority face on the screen, because
Hmm.
that's really what it came down to at that time. There weren't shows and movies with a lot of minority faces on the screen. So when there were, people were excited. It's like, oh man, there's I'm black, there's someone black up on the screen. I'm Hispanic, there's someone Hispanic or Asian or whatever the case may be. Whereas now we're more looking at, okay, who's telling this story? Do they understand enough about the people that they're trying to write about to make a good movie or a good TV show? And it's just comes with the passage of time and the growth of the medium and the growth of the audience.
Where do you think we're at now as far as diversity goes, as far as Hollywood? We see the right wingers bitching and complaining about wokeness, whatever the hell that means. All
Right.
that means to me is like they're just clueless to me. It's
Yeah.
like, I think it's cool as hell to be able to, look at a TV guide and see so many different diverse faces looking back at me. It's not the same old, not the same 30 white faces that we're all used to.
Right.
Now it's a lot more diverse and it's more interesting for me. It's cool as hell finally seeing Native Americans, finally, of all the groups I know that get the least representation. It's Native Americans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where, I mean, name five. You want to see a game? Name five Native American actors.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can name two.
I'd have to
Yeah, I
kind
can
of look
name two.
around at a list and see, okay, do I recognize any of these names? Um, I
Three.
I think we're in a good place in one sense, and like you said, there's so much diversity because there's so much content out there. Everybody gets to kind of tell their own story, so I do like that. I think we're having an issue though is with the big studios not knowing how to manage diversity. I know you missed my last part, was not being able to manage diversity without pandering. It's a lot of times where we just put something up on the screen like, oh, the black people are gonna like this, so let's throw it in
Yeah,
there, or the women are
fan,
gonna like this.
fan
um
service.
yes, it's really fan service, or we'll do a lot of race swapping, and this is where the right wingers really get all upset.
Mm,
And I to a point I get it, because I mean, let's like a big character, for instance, let's say Superman. I mean, was it last year, the year before, there was a big thing going around that Michael B. Jordan might be the next Superman. I don't personally want to see Michael B. Jordan be the next Superman. Give me another black character. You can keep Superman. He is who he is, right? I don't need to change him. But at the same time, if they do make it, I'm not going to offhandedly dismiss it and go, "Oh, this is terrible, it's woke." And no, that's not what we're going to do.
No,
And
no.
a lot of times when I hear people say um, that this or that is woke, it sounds to me honestly like, okay, it's not the hero is not a straight white male. That's what it sounds like to me.
That's what it
And
sounds like to me.
yeah. So it's like, guys, just move on already.
I don't really. The only thing I have a problem with that, I'm with you. This is I don't want a character change for the sake of change, for the sake of money or box office or anything. Like, Idris Elba. So, like to me, if Idris Elba was 007,
Uh-huh.
I'm so ready for that
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't understand this. This is what blows my mind about James Bond. James Bond, the name James Bond and title 007 has been worn by different people. Pierce Brosnan, we don't know who Pierce, we don't know the James Bond, we don't know his real name. James Bond's just a name. The person who inhabits the name, we never know. He
Mhm.
just assumed that they assumed identity. It's like Ghostface. Anybody could be a Ghostface. All they have to do is put on the mask.
Right.
Anybody could be a James Bond. All they have to do, they're rising. I think there's what? I think what was there? There are like 12 double O's. I think there are 12, like 12.
I think so.
And then as one gets killed or retires, they move all up. Like Sean Bean was like 004 or 005. They
Hmm.
moved up. He moved up as and so like when they're mentioning Ideas coming over there and becoming James Bond, I was like, hell yeah.
And
But at the same time, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say goes, really just to what you said. A lot of people, we've been watching it all these years as not as a new person that's taking over the mantle of James Bond. We've been looking at it as this is another iteration of that same person. So for a lot of people, it started with Sean Connery, James. So then after Sean Connery, Roger Moore was really just the next version of Sean Connery. He wasn't his own person. And then George Lazenby the same, and then Pierce Brosnan the same. It's like, okay, they're all playing that James Bond, and
Yeah,
that's one person. And
but see,
yeah, that's how people have been watching it.
yeah, but it's not how it is though.
Right,
If you look at all the James Bonds, they all bring their individual quirks and personality to the role.
right.
They're not playing the same guy. They're playing them differently all the time, and I really found that refreshing because Sean Connery. I mean, you look at George Lazenby's James Bond.
Mm,
That kind of guy, it's one of the best. It's one of the best ones. I
yeah.
mean, he's broken. He's sad. He's suffered loss. Sean Connery's. He has righteous anger. Roger Moore is. He's sort of creepy, but uh, uh, but you have like I said, Pierce Brosnan. You have Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig's his James Bond died, so like everybody's sitting there going like, okay, so who's going to be the next Bond? Well, if you're going like he's supposed to be the same person, there is no next Bond because he died.
Because he
But of
died,
course,
right?
You're going to bring him back, but you're going to slot him into the slot that Daniel Craig was in. Now you got to put a new 007. He'll be a 008, and they'll move up and become a 007. I like
Right,
that.
right.
It opens the door to be anybody can be James Bond. It could
Yeah.
be a female. It could be a female. It could be it could be an Indian. It could be
So
anything.
since we
I,
have a female in the series that seemed to be being groomed for the role almost, Lashana Lynch, what do you think about that?
I'd love to see it. I
Yeah.
still love to see Ideas though. I honestly I still like to see Ideas as just that to me because if especially if he did it like Stacker Pentecost. If he played him like Stacker Pentecost, he'd be the best James Bond ever.
Not the name I thought was going to come up talking about this.
Oh man, are they kidding me? Rule number one: don't ever touch me. Rule
Yep.
number two: don't ever touch me. I mean, shit. Ideas is the shit. He's one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, he's
Um,
great.
I just think it's an exciting time for both viewers and like us for cinephiles. I think it's a great time for us in one respect, as far as seeing all these cool movies coming out and all these series coming out. It's really neat. What sucks as for us as cinephiles is a lot of these things that are coming out now are not being released to where people can get them and bring them home and watch them. That is what really kills me. It's like I see all these little 8 run series, and this is like, how you got to run at least 3 seasons on that, and then as soon as it's done, then release it.
Right.
Um, I don't want to see, like I remember when Netflix released the first season of Daredevil, and they had it at Walmart. They wanted $32 for 12 episodes. I couldn't
Wow.
do that. I was just like, that's really way too expensive. I mean, we're used to paying 20, 28, $29 for a season of 22 shows. We want to release it to the public, but at the same time, you want to make it accessible to the public. Like, yes, there are fanboys that will buy that for $39 or whatnot, but the average person who wants to see the show, they're not.
Right.
They're not going to spend that kind of money. They don't have that kind of money to spend necessarily.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just like when they put it out on physical media, they're just throwing a bone to the collectors and saying, because they're not really trying to push it because they want to keep everybody streaming. 'Cause even recently, Disney just this past year, just 2023, Disney started releasing the Marvel shows and Mandalorian on physical, but they're starting $40. That's cheap. I've seen them $50 in a lot of places.
yeah,
Uh, they're it's kind of just throwing a bone because they keep hearing people saying, "Hey, you should release this on physical, you should release that." And after they've been streaming so long, you're not getting any new subscribers to it. So here, you guys can have this, but you're gonna pay for it. And
I thought Disney, when Bob Engel came back and he said that because the person before him, he basically said that Disney was no longer going to do physical media. Then Bob Engel came back, took over, or whatever his last name is. He took over and he says, we're gonna do physical media. And I really thought, if they put out physical media again, and they have so much backlog to put out there. If they go out there and Disney's the type of company that could actually go to a Walmart and go to a Target or whatnot, have enough clout to sit there and say, I want shelf space, and put our stuff on your shelves. They
they've
have
got
enough
it.
clout to do. They have enough clout to do that.
Yeah, they've got
And
it. I go in my Walmart all the time, and you got all these DVDs spread out all everywhere, but there's a dedicated Disney section,
yeah,
that has just Disney movies on it. So they've got it. They can do it. They just don't have the interest in doing it. They're just trying to funnel everybody to the streaming. Now, maybe you can help me with this, because the part I'm confused on is like you're leaving just free money out there almost, because even if you don't put it out, even if Disney doesn't put it out, all of these other labels and boutique labels, I mean, they would pay in a minute, in a heartbeat, to snatch up some of these titles, either regular Disney titles or like Touchstone Films, or whatever other labels Disney owns, to get some of those backlog movies. All they gotta do is license it out. That's all they gotta do, and collect the money after they start selling. So I don't understand why they wouldn't do that.
I don't either. I don't either. I keep waiting for that. I keep thinking, like, man, because I haven't seen. I'd like to see some of those series too. It's like, why don't you release them? But Disney's always been notorious for high prices. They've
Oh
always
yeah,
been, because of the kid aspect of it, and they, every time you compare a regular movie side by side, and Disney's always going to be like 20-30% higher
oh yeah,
retail, and it's just like, because you're paying for the Disney name.
yep.
That's what the extra, yeah, that's the markup for. Yeah, I hope it gets better. I do hope. Where do you feel physical media is going to go? Um, I caught. I mentioned this before on the show that I've caught Kenny from Mid Level Media,
Hmm.
and I was watching him on one of his. I was watching one of his live streams, and somebody was commenting, like, like he was doing his audit show. Have you seen the audit show? Have you ever
Oh
seen
yeah,
him do his audit show?
yeah,
that might be that actually might be the funniest show on the tube. Oh,
yeah. Shout out
his,
to Ken. Ken's another
yeah,
one.
shout out to Kenny and his wife. It because I'm sitting over there and I'm sitting over there and he's talking about how all these movies he's bought and he's buying some shit. I gotta be honest with him. He bought Ladybug and like and you can see his wife is sitting over there throwing him the side eye with daggers. Like, you bought that. I mean, seriously, you bought that. And and people were clowning on him a little bit in the chat about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And they said, well, how is it you buying all these movies that there's no way possible you're gonna be able to see all of them? I mean, even if that's all you did starting right now, I don't think you get through your collection. And I can relate to that. And you can too
Oh yeah,
with your
absolutely,
2,400 movies.
absolutely. I,
How many what percentage real quick? What percentage do you think have you seen of your collection?
so fortunately, I actually do know. I because I keep my whole collection. Uh, I've got it in Letterboxd.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the great things about Letterboxd is any list you make, or any list you look at, it tells you what percentage of it that you've marked as seen. And I've marked 78% of mine as seen, which sounds like a pretty good percentage. But if you
Yeah.
just do raw numbers of it, that's still over 500 movies in my collection I have never seen.
Yeah. But that's
And
still really good.
yeah, so I
I
don't know, maybe if I would get fortunate enough to retire, then I'll be sitting home a lot more. Maybe I'll get to watch all 500, but it's highly unlikely. I've
um
got box sets that's got 50 movies on it that I've seen four of.
oh,
You know,
right. Oh, right, right. Those multi-packs. Yeah. Do you like watching public domain movies? You get those multi-packs with 50 public domain movies. You ever get any of those to watch?
I do. I've got a few of those,
They're
and I
awesome.
generally get them for bad movies when I
Yeah.
know the movies are going to be bad. Because sometimes I just like watching bad movies just because they're fun to watch. And so I do have
You watch
a
a lot
few
of
of
A20. You watch a lot of A24 then, right?
those. I do watch some A24. I know you're not a big A24 guy.
Actually, I was blown away. I was actually blown away. I was checking out Sin's Corner, and and I went over there and I think she released a video. She was talking about this movie that I had never seen anybody talk about at all. This is before A24 became the critical darling, right? See,
Mhm.
I was collecting A24 before that.
Okay.
I didn't know it, but I mean, I was doing it because I was going through my family video and they would have movies on sale and I would just blind buy and I was picking up A24 films. So one of the movies that I picked up and I'm looking at it, I'm watching Sin's video. I'm like, holy shit, someone actually knows this movie. It's a movie called Remember with
Okay.
Christopher Plummer and Martin Landau.
I'm not familiar.
Nobody is. Nobody. This is before, like I said, this is before A24 became A24. This is back then when they were just starting out. It's one of the early releases. Cannot recommend that movie enough.
Okay.
Cannot.
Remember. Okay.
It's my favorite A24 film. The second one that I would recommend from A24 that nobody talks about either is a movie called Cut Bank. That's a phenomenal movie.
So
That
you
has
got two that I don't know. Okay.
there's a actor named Michael Stolenberg who stars in Cut Bank. He deserved a lot of awards for that performance. It's an amazing performance. It's a great movie, and yeah. But remember, and honestly, remember. I think if it got released today, we'd be talking Oscars. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, you would be talking Oscars with that movie. It's phenomenal. But no one talks about it. I'm sitting there watching. I'm looking at Sin. I'm like, oh my gosh, you cover that. So I went back and I had reviewed it back in 2017, and I sent her my review of it. I reviewed this way back when I just first started. It was only my 33rd review, and I'm going like, and it was funny because it came right after my very first IFC Midnight review, which was a
Okay.
movie. Yeah, which I go back and look at it and go like, that's just too trippy for me. That's way too trippy. Uh, um, but it was a movie called The Dead Room.
Hmm.
That was my number 36. That was my 32nd review, and then Remember was my 33rd. I was like, I go back there and look at that and go like, that's amazing. How did that happen? Um, one quick thing before I wanted to let you go, though. I really want to touch base with you, because I did catch your video about you. You know, you have to change your schedule and whatnot, and I found out that you're an educator.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to ask you, what's it like being a teacher in today's world? I mean, I was sitting here, I was talking like, like it's almost like to me, it's like a teacher is almost like a cop in the sense that, you talk to cops, they always sit there and say, I just want to come home to my family. And it's like to me, I feel like I think teachers say that now too, today, in today's world. I think teachers are saying that, like, I just want to get home to my family. And before you would never even think about that. You would
Right.
never even think about it. But that's a reality. And it's like, it's the same concept because you never know what you're gonna run out. You never know, every stop's different. And I think to myself, well, like every day at a school is different. You just never know. Uh but at least a cop has freaking body armor and a weapon. At least he has a fighting chance. Um, is this something that you think about as a teacher? Is that something that plays in your mind when you do teach? Every day you walk in there. Is it always in the back of your head that there could be a situation?
It's in the back. It's not something I worry about every day. But the possibility is there, and from time to time you have to have drills. So we have active shooter drills, lockdown drills. We have all these drills, so the kids are aware too. Thankfully, if you're in a school where nothing too bad has actually happened, then the kids feel safe. Then you can kind of feel somewhat safe, but it's always there that something could happen, especially when something pops up on the news. And
Mhm.
it's even worse. Excuse me, I'm dealing with a cold here, so my voice is kind of going a little bit. But it's even worse if something has happened at a school near you, because then everybody's like, "Oh man, that's getting hitting close to home," and that's happened for me. There's been some schools in the area where things have happened, and you worry about it, you think about it, but if it makes you paranoid, it makes you really anxious and really scared, then you shouldn't be there.
Yeah,
Uh,
if your knees buckle, you've been there long too long.
yeah, yeah, because the bottom line is you're really there for the kids. You're really there for their betterment, and if you can't achieve that, or can't at least help them get better because you're worried about what might come through the door, then you need to move on.
I just I think that's really sad, though. I think it's sad because there are probably a lot of good educators out there that's happened to, that they've been overwhelmed by that. Especially at a school that it's happened to. You imagine it's like worrying about it happening, or being a teacher that it has happened to, and you're asked to go back to teach there.
Yeah,
Like,
I can't imagine that happening. Hopefully I'll never have to deal with that. My heart goes out to those that do have to deal with that. Um, yeah, because I don't know. We just never know how we're gonna handle something like that. So I don't know one if I'm lucky enough to survive something like that. I don't know if I'll be able to go back. I'm not sure. Just don't know until it happens,
right.
and hopefully it never happens.
Do you think as an educator and also as a cinephile, like, to me, when I hear about the gun violence, and people rip on the NRA, and they should, I'm first one there for that one. But I also really feel like Hollywood has 50% responsibility to this. Every time there's a massive gun shooting, you see all these celebrities, all these stars come out against it, and it really angers me in the fact that they're partly responsible for it. They help glamorize it. You know, they have gunfights. They have all the previews they have of the show. I mean, it's just a walking advertisement for overdoing it on the gun. Do you feel Hollywood has a responsibility to monitor some of that content? I mean, I was talking about this before last Saturday on the House of Horrors. During the '70s, they had Congress came down on the network TV. They had three networks back then, but they came down on them for the violence. They said, you guys got to quit being so violent. You got to tone it down. Uh, Hi, Sue. How are you? Um, and that led to a couple of shows being canceled back in the 70s that weren't canceled for ratings. They were canceled because they were considered too violent. And one of them was a 70s show called SWAT, which
Yeah, I
was
remember SWAT.
extremely
Yes.
popular, very, very popular show. It
Uh-huh.
got it got canceled because of Congress, because ABC said, well, yeah, we can't, we can't air the show anymore. Um, so, I mean, do you feel that way as an educator? I mean, do you is that I mean, as a movie fan, you look at something like a Lethal Weapon, you're going like, hell yeah, that's badass. There's Mel Gibson, you know, shooting it up. And then as an educator, you look at that and go like, man, these kids are seeing this shit all the time. They're seeing, there's Rambo, with a 50 caliber machine gun. There's all that violence. Do you feel like do you think that we should rein it in a little bit? Maybe like, hey, can you self police yourself a little bit?
It,
To do
it
that.
it's tough because I'm also a creative, and I'm not into really censoring someone's art. And then I grew up myself watching all of that stuff too, and it's like, well, I turned out okay. But then, yeah, you see what's happening with the kids, and then and it's kind of twofold. Yeah, they're seeing way too much, right? Overall, I can agree with that, and they're seeing way too much. But I always want to place some of that responsibility on the parents. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
you're allowing your kids to watch all these movies. You're allowing your kids to play all these video games. I mean, I've not this year, but last year I taught first grade last year, and I'm not gonna mention any names or schools or anything like that, but just understand that in first grade I had a student come up to me, and we were playing a classroom game, not come up to me, but we were playing a classroom game online, right? We go to one of these websites where you can play games online, and the students could put in a username, and they put in some name, and I'm like, well, what name is that? She's like, oh, there's a little girl. That's my GTA name. Why do you have a GTA name at 6 years old? Why are you playing Grand Theft Auto at 6 years old? So
Yeah.
it's more than just movies and TV shows. I mean, you get the video games, you get the movies and the TV shows, and you get the music, and then though there's that other piece which you talked about with the NRA. I think that's another big piece of it, because guess what? All this media that we put out, we're putting out around the world, right?
Yeah.
American entertainment is really popular around the world. That's what people don't always understand. But only in America are we getting massive mass shootings like every day.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between us here and people in other countries?
Because we have accessibility to guns and they
Right, a
don't.
lot of it, and they keep pushing that accessibility. If you're in the chat or you viewing this later and you're a gun owner, I don't want to take away your guns. That's not my goal here, but just understand that accessibility to guns is being pushed so hard at the cost of everything else. If you ever notice, like when there is one of these mass shootings, the NRA, they come out with these statements, and then people
Defend the
come out
shooter.
saying that they're bad actors, and then there's more lobbyists fighting for the NRA cause. So
Well, they're
yeah,
gonna. I mean, they're. I mean, they. I mean, for one, there's one good thing. It's sort of weird too that it's happening to them now. But I mean, but they are getting beaten back.
mhm,
They're being sued. I mean, you saw what happened to Alex Jones.
yep,
He went around saying that Sandy Hook was a red flag operation. He got sued for. I
a lot of
mean,
money.
yeah, his. I mean, I don't even think this planet will. I think the last person on the planet could be Alex Jones, and he still would owe $500 million. That's how much. So, me on the other hand, I'm going to sit there and say the opposite. I'm going like, no, I don't want to take your handgun. I don't. I think
Right,
everybody has a right to have a right to defend their house
right.
with a handgun. But I sure as shit will sit there and say you don't need an AR-15 to do it. You
Yeah,
don't.
and I
You
didn't
don't
mention
need a.
that. Yeah,
You don't.
you don't have to have an assault rifle.
No,
Okay.
you don't have to have an automatic shotgun. You don't need a Mossberg to defend your house. You got a 9mm, you got a Glock with two magazines. Then guess what? That's 34. That's 34 shots. If you ain't stopping somebody by 34 shots, you ain't stopping them at all. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Right.
I mean, I totally get that. And I'm totally with home defense, but you don't need to have you know 60,000 rounds of ammunition and 30 rifles and all that bullshit.
Yeah. And
Um,
and you know, those kind of weapons, that's where Hollywood comes in because let's be honest, they're sexy.
oh
You know,
yeah, you look at that scene in Commando or what was the scene of Raw Deal? First time I saw that
raw
in
deal,
Commando
yeah.
too. Oh man, here he comes. And they put it down on the bed and he opens it up and all of a sudden here comes this porno music come on. This guns, he's like he's like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like
Or
Commando, same thing. He could
commando,
drop the
yeah.
bag and
He's
it's like that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. That's the glamorization that we're seeing and on screen. And we talk about the video games. Kids are impressionable. They
yep,
see that shit. They're
yep,
impressionable. They want to be just like that.
yep.
And I just feel that Hollywood just doesn't do enough necessarily to try at least to maintain some sort of semblance of not making it gratuitous. We talk about gratuitous nudity in horror films.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, we gotta throw some tits in here. That happens, right? Let's get a
Yeah,
shower scene in there, and then we'll have our killer. You know, it's the same thing with action adventure movies. It's like,
yeah. And
yeah,
that's a whole American deal that we've had since the beginning. For somehow we figured that sex is more dangerous than violence.
Marilyn Chambers,
Yeah.
the rest of her soul, she said that
Yes.
only in America could you can stab a woman on her breast and have it rated R, but show the same scene with a man kissing the breast and it's rated X.
Yep. Yep. And rest in peace of Marilyn Chambers. She was another B movie queen I used to watch a lot of back in the day.
I used to watch a lot of her too. I didn't know
Yeah.
that she had done adult films till I was in my teens. I did not realize that. I always saw her as she was always on the she was always on Cinemax.
Yep. Yep.
And it's like I didn't know I was like, okay, I thought she was just one of those soft core actors. I didn't know until later on that she was actually a very famous porn queen.
Yeah, I
And
had the same experience. It was like, years later after I had seen her in, I don't know, umpteen Cinemax movies, and then I found out about her earlier movies than that, the hardcore stuff. I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
yeah. Well, listen, Dal, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I had so much fun. I'm so glad you came out and hung out with us. Um, now I know that your schedule has changed a little bit because you're going to be. You mentioned you started at a new school. So movie swap that was airing every week probably is going to every other week. And so I encourage everybody who's watching on the replay to sub to Dale's channel. I got all the descriptions down below. You can follow him on Instagram. You can follow here on the tube. Movie swap. Do you have a regular day for movie swap? I
It
mean,
was Tuesday. Going forward, I'm not sure if it's still going to be Tuesday because how things have changed. Uh,
right.
so I'll just if you subscribe to my channel, just check out my community tab, and I'll keep you posted on when there's another one coming up. I do have one scheduled right now in February. Basically, took all of January off for movie swap. I only did a couple in December. I've got one in the can scheduled for February, and that will have Kenny Sparks on there. I
Cool.
believe the 12th is what we agreed to. So, but yeah,
Have you had John on there yet?
say that again.
Have you had John on the show yet?
Plan X2? Yes, I actually have.
Oh, that's a
So,
good one.
so
I'm
yeah,
gonna
go.
go.
I have a whole playlist of all the movie swaps. It's like 40 of them. Carve out some time if you want to
Did
watch
he
a couple
bring?
because they're
Did
generally
he
an
bring?
hour to an hour and a half.
Did
And
he
John,
bring Gene Author? Did he bring Gene Author to the show? Did he promote a black and white movie?
he did. Was it Mr. Smith Goes to Washington? I think is what I watched.
I think that's with James Stewart, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why? Why? Yeah, because him and I we talk about Gene Author, and I'm a Myrna Loy guy, so we talk about
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever seen the Thin Man series?
I saw the first one years ago, and I don't really remember much about it.
So good. So
So
good.
I need to go. No, I take that back. I saw the third man, not the thin man.
Oh yeah, the Third Man. That was with the Orson Welles.
Yes.
Um, yeah, but the Thin Man with William Powell and Murray Loy and Asta.
Yeah,
Six
I've heard
movies,
it is good.
so good. They're all out on Blu-ray too. So I just keep looking for those type of movies. Those are the type of movies I keep my eye out. All right. So we will be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock with I'll be joined by AKA Al Lecard, AKA the Bat. Him and I will be talking with Ray Murray uh, from Cinephobia Releasing at 8 o'clock. And then Saturday at 3 p.m. we have a matinee show with actress Elizabeth Chamberlain, who stars in the movie Grotesque. And she also is a vocalist. So I think we're going to do a little singing on Saturday. Um, Next week we have a bunch of cool shows. I'll let you guys know what they are tomorrow, since we're running a little bit late tonight. But thank you for showing up. Drop a like. If you're here for the replay, consider giving us a sub. Both me, Dale, and the Paladin, myself, give our channels a sub. Drop a comments on our channels. We appreciate it. It helps us out. Thanks so much, and we will talk to you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, where I'll be joined by Al Lecard.
All
All
right.
right. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Peace.
Bye. Thanks for having me, Pat.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Let me get out of here.